Japan, the United States, and the use of the atomic bomb during World War II by Trevor Jones and Kelly McCarthy. It is a highly debated topic, but the dropping of the atomic bomb was necessary to prompt Japan to surrender and put an end to World War II. Dropping the atomic bomb saved hundreds of thousands of American lives, as well as Japanese lives, that the ongoing and future battles would have cost them both. The island campaign in the Pacific, which included mass civilian suicide on islands like Okinawa, the use of the kamikaze, and the far too often overlooked firebombing of Tokyo killed hundreds of thousands of Japanese alone. This overwhelmingly proves that all Japanese that were involved were willing to fight until the last man, woman, or child got themselves killed in the process. Hisatsuno Sakamoto, the chief cabinet secretary in 1945, called the bombing a golden opportunity given by heaven for Japan to end the war. Were the Japanese really ready to surrender before the bombs were dropped? By no means were they ready to surrender unless it was by their terms only. Japan wanted to keep their emperor, have no outside forces occupy Japan, keep their military arms in their control, and also be in control of any war crimes committed. The Japanese were given the option to unconditionally surrender when the Allies issued the Potsdam Declaration and warned them of destruction if they continued to disagree. According to General Anami, Japan's Minister of War, the conditions they called for were ones that the world would not have recognized as surrender. On July 28th, Japanese Prime Minister Gentaro Suzuki responded to the Potsdam Declaration by telling the press that his government was paying no attention to the Allied ultimatum. An excerpt from the NSA document Magic says that important elements in the Japanese army were unwilling to surrender, and that is evident from intercepted messages dated the 12th and 13th of August. Willingness to accept the destruction of the army and navy rather than surrender inspired the military coup that unfolded and failed during the night of August 14th. Emperor Hirohito said that he would make a recording of the surrender announcement so that the nation could hear it. That evening, army officers tried to seize the palace and find Hirohito's recording, but the coup failed. Early the next day, General Anami committed suicide. If Japan was really ready to surrender, why did they have thousands of soldiers still ready to fight in the battle at Okinawa? Even after the first bomb, military authorities refused to concede that the Hiroshima bomb was atomic in nature and refused to consider surrender. In his 1947 article published in Harper's, former Secretary of War Stimson expressed his opinion that only the atomic bomb convinced the emperor to step in, stating, "All the evidence I have seen indicates the controlling factor in the final Japanese decision to accept our terms of surrender was the atomic bomb." Many anti-bomb revisionists say the Japanese were trying to surrender without citing any evidence, and that Truman's July 18th cited diary entry refers to the Japanese emperor asking for peace. It was instead the Japanese Foreign Office's attempt to persuade the Soviets to broker a peace that would have permitted the Japanese to retain their pre-war empire and keep their imperial system intact. In early June, when the Battle of Okinawa was lost, and when their own studies showed them the war could not continue, peace initiatives could have been launched. Foreign Minister Molotov had notified Japan on April 5th that the Japanese-Soviet Neutrality Pact would not be renewed. The Germans had surrendered unconditionally on May 8th, leaving Japan completely isolated, a good time to open direct negotiations with the United States and the UK. In the PBS documentary Victory in the Pacific, historian Donald Miller argues, in the days after the Potsdam Declaration was received, the emperor seemed more concerned with moving the imperial regalia of Japan to a secure location than with the destruction of his own country. Koichi Akido had urged the emperor to end the war as early as February 14, 1945, after military setbacks in New Zealand. But lured by the prospect of a final decisive battle, Emperor Hirohito responded that, since the army and navy are willing to fight the decisive battle of Okinawa, now is not the appropriate time, so the surrender was delayed. Tokyo was firebombed, the Battle of Okinawa was fought, and atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, mainly because the emperor could not exercise the leadership needed to end the war. Although the dropping of the atomic bombs destroyed cities and killed many people, it was inevitable to do so. The Japanese leaders' continuous refusal to surrender would have led to many more deaths of combatants from both sides of the war, as well as innocent lives of Japanese civilians. The United States used the atomic bomb to effectively end the war, and by doing so, they set an example for the rest of the world to see. The message was clear: don't mess with the United States. Japan had given up the right to be dealt with kindly when they attacked Pearl Harbor unprovoked on December 7, 1941, killing 2,836 and injuring another 1,139. But the United States still gave them a chance at the Potsdam Conference when they were told, "The full application of our military power, backed by our resolve, will mean the inevitable and complete destruction of the Japanese armed forces and just as inevitably, the utter devastation of the Japanese homeland. The two bombs effectively brought the Japanese to its knees, in turn procuring their agreement to immediate surrender. The bombs were a physical instance of addition by subtraction. By destroying both cities and killing a number of Japanese citizens, the bombs saved the lives of many more people that would have been killed later on in the process of war. Emperor Hirohito dedicated himself totally to presiding over and guiding the war to victory at all costs.